but it was Mecca, where Islam originated. It all began with a cosmic event. A meteor had smashed into the Arabian Peninsula. The rock that fell from heaven was considered a divine sign. It inspired the founding of the Mecca of pilgrims. Long before the birth of Islam, a cult site formed around the sacred rock, the Kaaba, the Arabic word for cube. Not only the meteor was venerated here, there were also gods with names like Hubal, Alat, and Usa. As the centuries passed, Mecca developed into the largest cult center in Arabia. But in the year 610, a religion was born here that changed everything. Muslim legends claim that the beginnings of Islam were accompanied by mysterious events. The stories revolve around a man named Muhammad, whose search for the true faith led him to a cave near Mecca. Purification and fasting were among his rituals in these rocky corridors. In the year 610, the seeker appeared to find answers to his questions. Precisely how the divine message reached the future prophet remains a mystery. But the words are clear. They speak of a jihad, of the struggle to establish the only true God, and of a radical rejection of all forms of polytheism. Spread the word, spread the word. A voice apparently instructed him. Muhammad was to announce the message of Islam, of voluntary submission to God.
The Quran talks of a spirit that is hard to identify. In the later version of the Quran, Muslims identified this spirit with the angel Gabriel.
According to legend, Muhammad was in contact with heavenly beings for 2 decades. He was unable to read or write, so during his encounters, the word of God was written on his heart and placed upon his tongue, or so tradition says. The prophet then passed on the divine revelations to his followers by means of the spoken word. Even during Muhammad's lifetime, people began to write down his words. His role as a prophet upset many people. Muhammad's call for the abolition of polytheism posed an economic threat to the place of pilgrimage. Together with his followers, Muhammad was driven out of Mecca. The departure from Mecca in the year 622 marks the start of a new calendar for Muslims and a further interpretation of jihad.
Muhammad began spreading the word peacefully at first, while still in Mecca. After the move to Medina, he was armed. He also initiated violence himself.
The caravans and commercial centers of Mecca became the target of an armed jihad, which had now become synonymous with the armed struggle for the faith. Muhammad personally ordered the attacks. The man of faith had become a warlord. 48 battles were chronicled in the early phase of Islam, and the Prophet himself took part in half of them. But the Muslim warriors had to follow a strict system of regulations.
Sie haben gekämpft und sich nicht ergeben. Sie müssen sterben.
Some Muslim warriors want to kill any women and children who had refused to surrender. But Islamic martial law only permits them to be sold as slaves.
Aber das Geld, das wir für sie bekommen,
Of the loot, 4 out of 5 parts go to the warriors. The fifth part belongs to Allah and to his prophet Muhammad, but also to the orphans and the poor. After 8 years of struggle, the supporters of Islam successfully conquered Mecca. Muhammad take revenge against his former persecutors. The wrath of the Prophet was directed against the gods in the Kaaba. This iconoclasm at the sacred site of Mecca was also a political act. The old power structures in Arabia were smashed, along with the ancient cult figures. And the Christian faith, which had its place among all the other confessions in Mecca, suddenly had a powerful rival. The success of Islam was nowhere more evident than in the development of Mecca. Over the centuries, the regional cult center with the Kaaba became the most visited place of pilgrimage in the world. Every year, 3 million people make the pilgrimage to Islam's most important holy site. Shared rituals and prayers strengthen the communal spirit of the faithful, who gather here from every corner of the planet. With 1.4 billion adherents, Islam has become the second largest religion in the world after Christianity. The followers of the Prophet laid the foundations for this many centuries ago. The preachers in Mecca spread the word of the Prophet Muhammad. It's a Muslim's duty to go to war and fight for Allah. Until the last days and the end of the world, there would always be warriors fighting the jihad. They claimed that those who fight for Allah, whether they live or die in battle, will be rewarded in paradise. The sword of the Prophet was no longer used exclusively for defense, but also for the spread of Islam. Jihad turned into holy war.